Good morning, all. Welcome to our first workshop in this mini series, this mini makeup series. This event is being hosted by the Local Government Commission and the Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority. We are recording this event, so it is in webinar mode. If for any reason you want to speak or ask a question, we will ask to unmute you on our end, but otherwise you will be muted the whole time. If you miss any of these sessions, you will be able to watch the recordings further as a follow-up once we upload them to the website. And as we move through today's discussion, feel free to ask questions using the Q&A function, and we'll try our best to get to them. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who do not know, the Local Government Commission is a nonprofit organization. We support policymaking and implementation through educational events such as this, through network development and technical assistance with the aim of creating more vibrant and resilient communities throughout California. We implement both local and regional projects, and we also work statewide in climate, energy, community design, and water. And we've had the pleasure of working with SABA for several years now through the Disadvantaged Community Involvement Program funded by Prop 1. I'll take this chance to introduce myself. My name is Atley Keller, and I am a project manager at the Local Government Commission. I am joined by my colleague, Emily Finnegan, and we will be joined shortly by Danielle Dolan, our program director. You may recognize both of these lovely women from our previous trainings, whether in person or online. Feel free to say hello to them. So we originally designed this Watershed Ambassador program to be held in person, as we had some of them in person, but because of COVID, we wanted to develop this mini series to allow folks to still get certified virtually. So we really hope that one day we can join you all back in person, but until then, we are very grateful for this technology that allows us to meet with you in this format. Our goal is that you as local leaders attend all 3 workshops to maximize your learning and these opportunities for collaboration. However, these sessions are also designed so that you can attend just one and still get some level of certification. So you can see on this slide that if you attend one workshop, you will receive a certificate as a watershed steward. For 2 workshops, you are a watershed champion. And our hope for everyone is that you attend all 3 workshops and become a watershed ambassador. Upon completion of each workshop, you'll submit a corresponding worksheet in this new mini series, and then you'll receive your certificate via email. And this certification is to recognize you in your informed leadership, your commitment to healthy and resilient communities, and your dedication as a public representative of the watershed. As you're joining us today, you know that our discussion will be around getting to know the Santa Ana watershed. Our second workshop will be held on February 3rd, where we will be talking about collaboration in the face of uncertainty. We'll talk about the cycles of drought, fire, flood, as well as the impacts of COVID, and how collaborative planning can help communities respond to and prepare for those impacts. So both of these workshops, 1 and 2, will be held live, but you can also watch the recordings online and watch on your own time and complete those worksheets on your own time. Workshop 3 will be about communicating the value of water, and that will only be offered as a recording and another associated worksheet activity. Today's workshop will be comprised of several sessions listed here on your agenda and shared in the chat. If you have to step out for any sessions, you'll be able to watch them on our website, so don't worry. As a general practice for our in-person meetings, we acknowledge the tribal territory in which we are meeting. So in this virtual format, we want to recognize and acknowledge all Indigenous people throughout the Santa Ana watershed. California tribes never ceded their land. Wherever you are located is the traditional territory of a sovereign nation. And we aim to respect the sovereignty of our Native American tribes by acknowledging that this is their homeland and that Indigenous peoples are the original stewards of the land. The Santa Ana watershed is the traditional territory of several federally recognized tribes, including the Soboba Band of Luiseño Indians, the San Manuel Band of Serrano Mission Indians, the Morongo Band of Mission Indians, and the Santa Rosa Band of Cahuilla Indians. It's also home to non-federally recognized tribes, such as the Tongva and Gabrielino, as well as the Juaneño Band of Mission Indians, Hashiman Nation. We'll be touching on tribal watershed management in the next section, but as we talk about the history of the watershed. So we have several objectives in this first workshop. We want you to understand the history of California water as it relates to the Santa Ana watershed and how we got to where we are today. We also want you to know the meaning of integrated watershed management as a practice and learn about the systems of this watershed and how they're all integrated and coordinated. And we want you to leave this workshop feeling empowered as community leaders to talk about water. So we tell you this now because we are going to ask you to evaluate us on how well we did in meeting these objectives at the end of the workshop. So let's go ahead and get started with the basics. What is a watershed? It is the area of land that drains all streams and rainfall to a common outlet, such as the outflow of a reservoir, the mouth of a bay, or any point along the stream channel. So when a drop of water falls from the sky, the watershed is the land that it falls on and determines where it's going to go. The Santa Ana watershed is very complex. It spans from Big Bear to Huntington Beach, Anaheim to Hemet. It traverses diverse land and water. It offers unique climate conditions. It covers urban to rural. And the watershed is socioeconomically, linguistically, and culturally diverse. It's home to both high wealth and extreme poverty. It's estimated that 1.7 million people are categorized as disadvantaged within the watershed based on their median household income. Zooming out throughout all of California, water management is also complex, both because of the physical and the political components of it. There's multiple layers from the state level to regional groups to local governments. And there's a segregated approach with watershed management or with water management, which does not align with watershed function. Water management in California is largely decentralized, where thousands of local entities have the frontline responsibilities, including supplying water, complying with water quality regulations, covering operations, maintenance, capital investments, so much more. It's said that in California, we hate government so much that we've created thousands of them. And this is especially true in water. The Department of Water Resources is responsible for managing and protecting our water, and even they don't know how many water agencies actually exist. This decentralization has advantages, but it also poses problems for integration. Across the state, we've dissected every part of the water cycle for efficiency purposes. The 20th century was characterized by this assembly line mindset and dividing things into the smallest increment possible to increase productivity. We did that for education, city planning, healthcare. We did it for everything. And we applied this to water and land use. As a result, both of these fields have become highly specialized and standardized and in isolation from one another. This has led to a decentralized, myopic, and technical-only planning and management approach that seeks to solve the symptoms of the larger problem. So we've attempted to use this one-size-fits-all template to increase efficiency. Now, in the 21st century, we know more than we did, and we've seen the unintended consequences of these approaches. So we know that previous efforts have led to sprawl development, have led to patchwork ecosystem protection. There's been wasted resources, deferred maintenance on critical infrastructure, inefficiencies in governance, environmental harms, social inequities, and disincentives to do the right thing. We also know that the Santa Ana watershed is expected to grow from an estimated 5.9 million people back in 2010 to 9.9 million people by 2050. So the question is not if we're growing, but it's how we grow and how do we build in a different way. We want to prevent sprawl and that patchwork ecosystem protection and the consequences that they lead to. We also have these mounting pressures. Our drought, fire, and flood cycle will only increase pressures on the system. 5 out of 6 of the largest fires in California's history were burning at the same time over the past summer. And we can anticipate these pressures in an effort to be proactive rather than reactive in a time of crisis. The watershed's resilience will be dependent on the ability to handle these pressures, which requires a complete change in mindset and understanding what the problem is versus those symptoms of the problem. At the same time, we also recognize that there are challenges we can't predict, can't prepare for. We've seen COVID and how it's affected our communities. We see the pressures on the health system and on the economy. We can see the connection between all of these challenges and how they're compounded when our sectors are fragmented and uncoordinated. However, we can and we need to become much more resilient to both the planned and the unexpected challenges of our future. And that's why you're all here today. That's what we'll be working through today and through the workshop series. Each of you represent a unique body of constituents within your community. We have city council members, mayors, city general managers, LAFCO commissioners, policy directors, environmental program managers, individuals that represent every section of that dissected water cycle. You represent multiple layers of governance, authority, and political power. And many of you may hear integrated watershed management and think of the Prop 1 integrated regional watershed or water management program. But what we're talking about today is a much broader approach. It's the collaborative process of managing our collective watershed resources. So we know that each of you has a varying level of understanding and expertise in the water sector. So that's why we're starting with the basics and make sure that we all get a collective baseline and move from there.